It looks like I'm live. Doesn't give me much indication, but I will assume that I'm live. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to day one of Afraid to Fail at Homeschooling. I hope that you realize that we can't fail at homeschooling if we show up every day with our kids and we just are there for them, love them, and give them opportunities to learn. Because really, the whole purpose of homeschooling is to get your kids to learn the right things, hopefully keep them from learning the wrong things. And so in day one, I wanted to talk about don't do school at home. A lot of us, when we start homeschooling, I did it too. I was a first grade teacher in public school for 5 years before I had my first baby. And I quit teaching in public school, and I was just going to stay home with my children like my mom did. I always appreciated that my mom was at home. And even though I was off at school, if I needed anything, mom was there at home. And I knew I didn't do it very often, maybe once or twice, but if I was sick, if I needed to go home for anything, she was there. And I always appreciated that security, and I just knew that's what I wanted to do for my kids too. I wanted to be home for them. And that was as far as my thinking went, as far as like, spending time with my kids and stuff. I just figured I would do what everybody else did. Once they got school age, I would send them to school. But right after I had my first baby, my son Shawn, who's now 30 years old, I enjoyed being a mom. It was a little more difficult than I thought it was going to be, and my thyroid went bad on me, so I was exhausted, but I just loved my baby and my time with him, and I listened to Focus on the Family every day, and I was trying to get some ideas for parenting now that I was a parent, and I had time to listen to it at noon or 12:30 every day because I wasn't stuck at school. And so I was listening to it, and Dr. Dobson had a guest on named Dr. Raymond Moore, and they were talking about homeschooling. And so that was a fascinating topic, and I thought, wow, that sounds really neat. I would love to do that, but I just didn't know how I could do something like that. I didn't know anybody else who did it. I didn't know if I had that much nerve to go against the norms and just homeschool my own kids and keep them at home and be in charge of their education and not send them to professional teachers like me in a school building far, far away. And so I thought about it, and I thought it sounded interesting and enjoyable. I would love to do it, but I just didn't think that it was something I would really just be able to do, and especially since I didn't know anybody who did it. But right after I heard that broadcast, like a month or two later, we started going to this church where almost everybody there homeschooled. And my son by that time was about 18 months old. And I saw their large families. I saw how those kids just seemed to be free, and they had a lot of fun together, and I liked the dynamics of the families that I met in that church. And the ladies of the church were going to go to a homeschool conference in Columbus, Ohio. I was from near Dayton, Ohio. We all were in a small town near Dayton, Ohio. And so they invited me to go to this homeschool conference. And my son was almost 2 by that time. And I was just like, well, homeschooling sounds amazing, but he's only 2. I don't know if I need to go to a conference yet. And they said, oh, just go see what it's like. So I did. And I loved it. Oh my goodness. I went to a lot of the workshops and heard a lot of good speakers and saw how it just draws a family close together to spend all that time together instead of being separated out away. The kids are separated out away from the parents. The parents go to their jobs, and you know how society has been for many years now, and with family members just scattered everywhere doing all kinds of different things. And so I heard the workshops, I heard the speakers, I heard and saw a lot of the curriculum, which was fun to see, especially I was already a teacher anyway, so, but this was all different kinds of curriculum than I had seen in the public school system. A lot of it was Christian based, and I really liked that. And and I found a book that really guided a lot of how I ended up homeschooling my kids. It was about the Charlotte Mason approach. It was called For the Children's Sake by Susan Schaefer Macaulay. And she is Francis Schaefer's daughter, Francis and, I forget the mother, Edith. Francis and Edith Schaefer were her parents, and she just told her story of trying to find the best approach to educating her children. And they had tried a couple of different schools in England where they lived, and they just weren't really completely satisfied with those schools and how things were done and how learning was handled. And so I read that book, and that really, I didn't really read it until later because, you know, my son was only 2 years old, so I didn't feel like I was in that big of a hurry. But I did make the decision that I was going to homeschool my kids after attending that conference. So if you get a chance to go to a homeschool conference, you should do it if you can, because it really will help you. It will equip you to start out homeschooling, and you just get exposed to so many different ideas and approaches and curriculum, and it can just give you a lot of help. So I learned early on that homeschooling is different from classroom teaching. And, I had been used to having like 20 students and, writing things on the chalkboard and having everybody in the same book at the same time, turn the page at the same time, read the same sentence at the same time, having the smaller reading groups and trying to keep those kids in the bottom reading group engaged and try to get them to pay attention to the letters and words on the page and all of that. I was used to all of that, but I found out with homeschooling that I only had one kid at a time, and then I ended up having 10, but even at that, I only had one set of twins. The rest of them came one at a time, and I could just individualize with each of my kids with what they needed, how they needed to learn, what was best for them, what worked best for them, because it's all about learning. It's a homeschooling. The real main goal of schooling, education in general, is that they learn, not that they sit and write in workbooks about things they don't care about, not that they get a whole workbook completed, which hardly ever happens, not that they just, get it done, get a book finished or the assignment done so you can check it off and move on to real life. Because homeschooling education is real life. We're learning all of the time through everything that we do. So I just found that out gradually. I learned that gradually with my number one, my first son, my guinea pig. I learned that I couldn't do it and be happy and have him be happy the way the school does it. And with him, I started out when he was about 3.5 or 4. I started getting the little Sesame Street. It was a little preschool magazine that would come every 6 weeks or so. And I just kind of had him look at I read the stories to him. They were really little, and they weren't that much to do. And there were, I think, a few activities that probably wanted him to color or write, but he wasn't much into that, especially at like 4 years old. So, and all through, he fought me about learning to write correctly and legibly. He has learned now, but he is 30 years old. No, he learned before he turned 30. He's been a good writer for quite a while now. I liked his handwriting. I use italic handwriting, and I really like the way that looks, and I think it's more natural and flowing because it's more circular and less of the pointy, choppy type of draw the stick, then the ball, and connect it, and all of that. Xander Blozer, I am not really excited about that. I like italic better. Some people use Danelian, which is similar to italic, but I like the workbooks that it's italic. Oh no, I can't think of the name. I'll have to tell you later. But if you look up italic handwriting for homeschool, you'll probably be able to find it. I can't think of the name of it right now. But anyway, so that's how we started. And so I had to find out, I had to realize and figure out that doing it like school did not work for Shawn. And then as I had more kids, I started doing it more in a more relaxed way, in a more natural way, in a family way, just finding teachable moments and taking advantage of those. If he would ask a question, if one of the kids would ask a question, I would answer it. Or if I didn't know the answer, we would look it up and we would research together. And, or we'd ask Daddy. So, don't do school at home. Don't do it the way schools do it, because we don't have to. We don't have a classroom full of kids. The reason they do things the way they do is because they have 20 kids or more. And, they have to keep track of what they're doing, what they're learning. They have to take grades. They have to keep track of grades. They have to, I remember having to do all that. And the reason I had to do all that was because I had 20 kids to try to make sure I was teaching them what they needed to know, make sure they were learning it. So the big thing is that they learn. So we have to adjust the way we teach each child to the way that they learn best, so that it becomes, their knowledge. They can take ownership of the information you're trying to give them or the skill you're trying to teach them. It becomes their own. So we should lighten the burden for our child and for ourselves as the mom, and consider following a routine instead of a schedule. If you try to follow a time schedule, you're sure to meet obstacles that will keep you from starting at the exact time you planned, and you'll deal with life happening, kids' attitudes, tiredness, your own attitude, unexpected events, your own tiredness, and different paces that you all move at. But at home, you have freedom to be more relaxed and not rigid. You can follow your own rhythms and preferences. If your family tends to be night owls, you can sleep in later. If you have one child that is a night owl and one that's an early bird, you can allow them to do what works best for them. And all of our bodies are different, need different amounts of sleep. I just don't go with the rigid, everybody has to do everything the same way at the same time. I'm the opposite of that. I just think everyone needs to do what works best for them, and we know what works for us, how we feel the best. If we get 8 hours or 6 hours or 9 hours, whatever, and we need to give our kids that luxury, and that they need that. Their bodies need that. Their health needs that to get the right amount of sleep for them. So the hours of school time do not have to be within regular school hours. Some families start at 8 or 9 a.m. while others may not start until 10 or 11. And you may not have a regular starting time. It might just be they know what to do when they get up, and whatever time they get up, they start working in their workbooks, or they start on whatever project they are working on. Your planning can go along with the way you like to live your life. You can plan a more detailed, comprehensive schedule with every moment planned out. Or you can take a more relaxed approach and choose topics you want to cover and set a target date to start and finish them. There are many different approaches to teaching. You don't have to use textbooks and workbooks. If your child thrives on that approach and learns well that way, then you should do that. Most children learn better with an approach that suits their learning style. And I have a list here of different approaches that you can use that might work better for your child. And the thing that we want to do is to individualize to what works best, what suits each of our children. And if you have 10 or more like me, that takes some work and it takes some thinking, takes some observation of each child. And sometimes I haven't been good at that, at like matching them with whatever curriculum or type of curriculum works best, or whatever approach works best for each of my children. But eventually I come around to, oh, you don't like to read or have me read to you books that are more that have artistic license, and they're about a historical figure, but it's really historical fiction. And so for one of my kids, he did not like those kinds of books. He didn't like those kinds of stories. He wanted to know the facts, just the facts. And finally he told me that, and I was just like, oh, okay. So I had to start picking books for him that were like biographical and they were factual. And now he actually will read novels himself, but at that time he was not enjoying the books that I picked to read aloud. But there are other approaches. There's notebooking. Notebooking is really a wonderful way to keep track of what you've done in your school. You have these page protectors in a 3-ring notebook binder. And whatever, like you find printables online, or you can even do workbook pages, put them in and just keep some of the best and their artwork and things like that. You put in the page protector in the notebook, and then you have a portfolio of the work that they did during the school year. And they learn a lot from just being able to choose different topics, and you look up that topic and find a printable for it, and have them do that. And like you can really delve deeply into the Civil War, or into a certain animal or whatever, and find all kinds of pages for that and things for them to write. They can just write a paper. They can write like a term paper. They can write an essay, and you put that in the notebook too. And it's a really good way of keeping and storing the work for the whole year. And then they get in the practice of keeping notebooks when they're older too, and it helps them to be able to organize and keep their important papers and things together. Lap books are fun. I loved lap books. We did a lot of lap books, and they have little mini books that you have the child fill in information in the mini book, and then you put all of the little mini books into a file folder, or you can do that with notebooking too. And it gives them a chance to write. That was one of the biggest reasons I started using lap books, was to get my kids to write more, because it was hard to get them to, just sit down and write something. So lap books are fun. If you want to know more about that, I can show you some of my lap books. I love showing our lap books. Unit studies are amazing. You choose a topic that you want to study, you want your kids to know about, or they choose something that they want to know more about, You go to the library. This is how I do a unit study. You pick out lots of good books about that topic. You find documentaries, you find things on YouTube, you find movies that go along with whatever the topic is, and you just kind of immerse yourself and your kids in whatever that topic is. And you can use a lap book too for that. So unit studies are great. We've studied the presidents that way. We've studied sharks that way. We did lap books for the sharks and parts of the body, the heart, things like that. For a unit study, you might want to study systems of the body, or more than just one organ. Read aloud, which is what I love, and that's been our main way of homeschooling, is I read aloud really good books, classics, books by great authors who wrote really, really well. They're usually older, the ones that I like to read. But they have good character development, and the characters do have good character. They teach good values. That's been my main way of homeschooling for many years now. Manipulatives are good for helping with their understanding of spatial awareness and just the math skills and things like that. Manipulatives, blocks, colored blocks, the ones that you use to separate by their different into different categories, sorting, all of that can be done with manipulatives, and it helps a lot with when they're starting out and they're very concrete in their thinking, and they need to touch and move and stack and do all kinds of things manually with their hands. Manipulatives are great for that. Sensory bins are really good. Play sets are great for their imagination and developing imagination, communication, all kinds of things can come from play sets that have the little animals or the little houses, furniture, things like that. Dress up is great. Puppets are great. I'm going to rush through this list now. Poetry tea time is wonderful. Love that. And anything that you want to know more about, just ask in the comments or send me a message, and I would love to talk more about some of these things. Free writing, letters to relatives and friends, cards, making cards. My kids still do that a lot for people's birthdays, family birthdays and stuff. Lists of Christmas presents. They sure do that. Art materials, having lots of art materials available for them where they can reach them. They're accessible to the kids. When they're too little, though, you have to be careful about that. They'll write on the walls. Believe me, I know about that. Paper. I had twins who wrote on the walls, especially the girl twin. And then I had two more little girls after the twins, and they were bad about writing on the walls, and we lived in rental homes. So, paint, colored pencils, pastels, pens, gel pens, pencils, markers, crayons, writing paper with lines, and then, just regular printer paper. We go through lots of printer paper, and I have some artists among my children who just draw and draw and draw. Blank books are fun. They can just design their own book with nothing already there for them. Sometimes they will come with lines so they can write the text, but then they have a blank page so they can draw a picture. And journals are really good too. So you find out their interests. You find out the interests of whichever child you are focusing on, and check out books from the library about the topic that your child is interested in. Read the books with them, and that way you can learn together. It's always more fun together, right? I find YouTube videos about those topics. I'm kind of telling you how I do a unit study here. You find worksheets online, or have your child tell you what they've learned, sometimes orally and sometimes written. That's like a narration, which is a Charlotte Mason way of doing things. And you don't have to do school for 6 hours a day. With young children, make sure you keep your lessons short and keep it within their attention span. Even with older children, most should only do school for about 3 hours a day. Now, that's debatable. Some people would say, no, they don't do that. But my kids really were fine with that amount. And I didn't time it, really. It was kind of spaced throughout the day, and we did different things. We just really changed things up a lot. We don't have all of the organizational or administrative tasks that schools have because of the number of students and logistical concerns. So we can be a lot more relaxed. We can do things in a more, just a more comfortable way for everybody. They don't have to stop learning a certain thing because the bell rang and they have to head off to a different class now, a totally different subject, and change gears in how they're thinking, what they're thinking. So it's really a wonderful thing to be able to homeschool our kids and individualize and do things that flow with the rhythm of our family. You can do school 4 days a week instead of 5. Or, however you want to do it. However many days or however you want to do it. It does not have to be really rigid, and learning just happens all the time in all kinds of ways. You can do fun things on Friday. You can call Friday your fun day. You can alternate days for doing science and social studies. You could do science on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then social studies on Tuesday and Thursday, or vice versa. If you like history better than science, you might want to do the 3 days with the history. You can arrange your schedule, your curriculum, and your environment however you want. That's one of the Charlotte Mason quotes: is education is a education. Oh, I used to have it on my wall, but everything's been taken off my wall since we're moving. Education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. So atmosphere is important, and you want to develop and keep in your home an atmosphere that is conducive to learning. Have books available, like I said, all those art materials available, accessible to the older ones who know how to handle them. Books, I know, with little ones. I know how it is with babies. It's so hard. It's hard to keep anything nice. And you have to keep things out of their reach, but as much as you can, put it where your older kids can get to them easily without having to ask you to get them down or to go get them out of the locked file cabinet or cupboard. So it's your school, it's your home, it's your family, and your choice. Your children belong to you, not the state or anyone else. You do have the responsibility as their parent to make sure they are equipped for the future and for whatever God is calling them to. But the methods you use to do that can be creative and adapted to the needs of your children. Okay, when it comes to planning your your homeschool year, if you're just starting out and you have one child or two and you're just starting to figure out what you want to do, how you want to do your homeschooling, you can let your children help with the planning. You can let them help choose the topics and the curriculum. You can let them have a say in their education, and then as they get older, make them responsible for their own education. That's the goal anyway. We want our children to become lifelong learners, so we're giving them a chance to really choose what they want to learn, and then they enjoy learning more, and then they want to keep on learning even as they get older and into their teens and their 20s and their 30s. My oldest son, he reads aloud to his wife and she loves it, so it works out really well. But they are constantly learning, and they love learning, and they know a lot. They've learned so many things that I don't know. They didn't learn it from me. They're interested in a lot of things that I am not interested in. So, that's how it has to go. Instruct them and help them develop good habits and study skills and notebooking skills, and then put them in charge of their own learning. The more independent they are, the better prepared they are for real life. Field trips are a great way to extend the education of our children. For logistical and economic reasons, schools aren't able to take students on very many trips to museums, concerts, plays, etc. But we're able to do as much of these activities as we want to. Even a trip to the park can be very educational. Your children can see different animals and plants. You can do nature study and have a nature notebook that they draw in and write and then research whatever animal, squirrel or bird or fish or whatever they see at the park or wherever you go, wherever there's nature. You can take have them take their nature notebooks with them and draw and write about the things that they see. They get some exercise, which is always good, and you can call that physical education for your topics and your courses that you're teaching. It all counts with homeschooling. You can, if you have a musical child, you can take them to concerts, plays, musicals, and have them take lessons on an instrument or voice lessons. And there are choirs and musical groups and theater groups that you could have your kids join too. There are lots of things you can do to enhance their education that go beyond books and papers. The most important part of their education is their character development. If you find that they're having problems getting along with people, you will want to help them with relationship skills. You may have to spend more time on this sort of training than academic subjects at first, especially if you've pulled them out of public school and are just starting out with a whole brand new way of looking at school, seeing school and learning and all of that, and getting along with siblings, getting along with mom. If you see a character weakness like dishonesty, you will want to address that and help them to see the value and necessity of being honest. Use stories and role play to help them understand character attributes. Sibling disputes provide the opportunity to teach conflict management, anger management, and ability to compromise. Isn't that nice? It's really a wonderful thing. But you like for the disputes to be settled peacefully, right? And quietly. Not always. It doesn't always happen. The less your homeschool looks like school, the better. Schools have to be structured to handle lots of students, and efficiency and control are very important for them. We don't have to worry about those things. We don't even have to do tests or grades because our teaching is more like one-on-one tutoring. We know what they have learned and what they're struggling with. Think about the purpose of tests. Now, I took tests all through school, like probably all the rest of you, and I liked getting good grades on tests. I didn't like feeling all anxious and panicky about some of the tests that were given, especially, pop quizzes and things like that. But what is the real purpose of tests? Tests can be used to find out how much students know. Really, it can help you find out. And if you don't know what they know, then you might want to give a test on whatever topic they've been studying and see what they've really retained, what they've learned. And that's a good use of tests. You can find out what they need to learn better. And actually, if I would ever give a test, which I don't, I would let them find the correct answer if they missed anything. And that's because I want them to learn the stuff. I don't just want to say, oh, you got a B minus. Oh, bad, you got a D. That shouldn't be the purpose of tests or grades. So it's how you use them that I think makes a difference in whether they're really helpful or harmful. Sometimes tests are used to compare students with other students for ranking purposes. And if you have a need for that, then you would want to use some testing. I think using tests or quizzes to find out what they need to learn better is a good use of tests, but I think the step after that should be to help them learn the things they didn't learn as well, things they still need to know. And it just obviously hasn't sunk in yet. I think the objective is for the child to master the information as much as possible. I don't think grades should be used to rank or punish for poor retention of material. I don't think grades provide a good incentive for doing your best or learning as much as you can. It becomes all about the grade and not about, wow, now I know about arthropods or frogs or whatever the topic was that they were supposed to be learning. It becomes all about the test and the grade, and I just don't think that's the best way to encourage kids to learn. Outside motivation is not as good as their internal motivation because they want to know something. Take advantage of teachable moments. I talked about that a little bit before. When your child asks a question, take time to answer it or help them find the answer. When a situation arises that is new and you want your child to learn from that situation, take advantage of the time when it's fresh and meaningful. Extend their knowledge and understanding through new experiences and skills that are required in real life. Help them learn how to solve problems and use logic. That's a dying skill these days, and we want our kids to be able to think logically and solve problems and recognize truth and know when someone's telling the truth or lying or covering up or just all of that. The thinking skills, the critical thinking, we need to really be careful and make sure that we're teaching our kids to use their intuition, even to tell if something is for real or fake or deceptive. That kind of thing we need to teach, especially nowadays. Teach them to think for themselves. Teach them to question and reason. Give them opportunities to think out loud and discuss and consider all sides of an issue before deciding what makes the most sense to them. Of course, we have our foundations, our biblical foundations of what is right and what is true. But, beyond that, there are things that we have to make decisions on what we think is true, what we think is right, and it always based on the Bible. It can't be, outside of what the Bible teaches. But there are a lot of things we have to really discern if it's good or bad, true or false, and we need to help our kids with that sort of thing too. Discuss issues that affect our lives and affect their lives, and according to their maturity level, talk to them about issues of right and wrong, morality, worldview, and values. And so, that's not how schools do things. So we want to do things differently because we're not school-minded. We're not trying to do it the way schools do it. And we're trying to make sure that the learning it stays. I love to read books aloud to my kids. I've done a lot of that throughout the years, and I found this book at the library, The Mermaid's Purse by Patricia Polacco. And I got it at the library. Gary was with me. He was driving, and I started reading this story out loud to him. And he gets so involved in stories when I'm reading them aloud, or it's mostly when I'm reading them aloud. He gets so involved that he forgets that he's driving, and it makes it kind of hard for him not to hit the car in front of him and things like that. But this was a really cute story about a girl who loved to read books, and she ended up having her own library even, and she got the farmers to read books. This was her library, and she called it the Mermaid's Purse. There's a reason for that, and they tell you about it here. It has to do with when she was born, how she was in the the birth membrane, and they called that the mermaid's purse. So when she got her library, she called it the mermaid's purse. So that's why the story is called the mermaid's purse. So if you're looking for a good story to read to your kids, this is a picture book, and but it's a very interesting story. I'm thinking that it's based on a real person that grandmother, Patricia Polacco's grandmother, Estella. So that's a really good book. I'm trying to read a book a day with my kids. My baby is almost 13 now, so she's getting older. And then my 14-year-old and my two 17-year-olds are the only ones I'm still homeschooling out of 10. I'm down to 4. But they're older, so I can't just like grab the little picture books with just a few words and all that. But I can get these picture books that have a real story to them. And I haven't made it to actually read a book a day, but I've got some books here, and we're listening to the audiobook for Glitch, Glitch. It's so good. I think the author's last name is Martin. I got it from the library as an audiobook, and we've been listening to that. And I thought it was a short little story that we'd hear the whole thing in one day, but no, it's got many chapters, and I think we're on chapter 10 or even further along than that, and it's really, really good. So Glitch is another really good story too. You can get the book or you can listen to it on audiobook, and it's really good. So I want to tell you about some books that I've written about homeschooling. This book has a lot of the same content that I'll be teaching in this challenge. 5 Steps to Becoming a Great Homeschool Parent. I call our homeschool Safe Haven Homeschooling. So that's why, and that's our little symbol there. That's our little icon, a lighthouse with SHH, Safe Haven Homeschooling. If you are interested in getting this book with a lot of this same material, this is on Amazon. You can buy this on Amazon. And at some point I will be teaching parents how to have their kids write books and publish them on Amazon, because it's easy to do with Kindle Direct Publishing. And I wrote this one. This one's a little bit longer, and it's called The Basics of Learning and Homeschooling, again by Safe Haven Homeschooling by Penney Douglas. And this has a lot of learning styles and just teaching about how to just having the basics, knowing the basics of learning, so that when you are homeschooling your kids, you know that you're doing it well. You're working along with their learning styles and with the things that work best for retention for them, the things that help them to learn, enjoy learning, learn it well, make it their own. Just all those things. That's what we're really after. We want our kids to learn what they need to learn, the skills they need to learn, information, so that they do well in life. And important things of character and spiritual development, those things too come along with it. But if we know some of the basics of, things that have been observed, that different learning styles, and just the things that they are interested in and want to know, that probably is an indicator of what they're going to do for a career when they get older. So we want to be observant. We want to be watching and listening, paying attention, studying our kids, so that we can do the best for them in what we offer them and what we make available to them. We are facilitators of learning. That's how I think teachers should always be. And it's really hard to do in a classroom in a school, but as homeschoolers, we can be really good facilitators of learning. So I think that's all I have for you for day 1. So I don't know if anyone's here. I can't see any comments. I wonder if I could scroll down and see comments. I'm at my husband's computer, and his stuff. I don't see any comments. I don't see that anyone is here, so I'll catch you all on the replay, or you'll all catch me on the replay. So if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please put them under this video or someplace in the group. And thank you for joining, and I will see you tomorrow, probably closer to 1 o'clock than I was on today. All right, see you soon.